Wow, what a lovely gathering and what a beautiful space. A very nice, warm welcome to all of you to the 10th edition of Hyderabad Literary Festival 2020. We're extremely excited. Number one, that we finished 10 years, somehow. More so that with each edition, while we keep on complaining a couple of months beforehand, oh dear, another edition. But once we get to that real nitty-gritty, the spirit of the event just takes over. And lo and behold, here we are for the 10th edition. Many of you may know because you have been accompanying us. This began in December 2010. And then we decided that we wanted to shift the timing to January for various reasons. And since then, 2012 onwards, we have been hosting this event every January. We have traveled the city, beginning in a hotel in Somajiguda. We shifted to Taramati, a beautiful historic space, lovely, lovely locale. To Manu, the university, Maulana Azad University, Urdu University in Hyderabad, another lovely host. Road number 8, we tried out an experiment to do an outdoor road number 8 event, calling the entire street, the literary street, for those 3 days. And we did have about 7 partners who were at this street participate with us. Then we moved to Hyderabad Public School, and we are home to roost. This is home to many of us. This is definitely a place that has opened up its heart and doors, and of course everything else which we will not share here on the stage. And it has been most wonderful working together, and we're very excited that all the events that we have planned have found a perfect locale within the premises of Vidyaranya School. We also started something in the second or third year, second year I believe, something that is called the Guest Nation. We did have the German year at that time, so Germany was the first guest nation, but we followed it up with France, with Philippines, with Poland, with Ireland, with China, you name it. And we're extremely, extremely happy that Australia is the guest nation of the 10th edition, and with the largest contingent that we've ever had from the guest nation. This is something to applaud. Thank you. Language in focus was another issue that we thought we want to look outside and beyond our own space, but we do want to look inwards. So we did have Urdu, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Gujarati, Kannada as the various languages. And this year, we are celebrating the Malayalam language and look forward, Adurji representing our state in Kerala. And we look forward to a fairly substantial group, not only as writers, artists, filmmaker, of course, and a large array of people from Kerala. A lot of exhibitions also have Kerala as its theme. So what defines a decade? What is it, these 10 years? It's numbers, of course. Many of us already feel it in our bones. But what has happened is that the spirit of this festival has become far more intense, far deeper, far more contagious, really, that has really brought the, over 120 odd people who are working together without the slightest worry of whether I have slept, whether I have eaten, or what is happening. 120 people, the festival committee, and we have a member right here, Shriyati Raj, the organizing committee, the festival coordinators, staff, the school staff, the Vidyaranya staff, the HLF staff, have just been connected, glued to this event for the past many, many weeks. So again, we're talking about numbers. What began in 2010 with a couple of hundred people who visited the literary festival, we now have a couple of thousand. And that is incredible, considering that it's only these volunteers and group that come together and somehow pull it off. So a couple of thousand, 10, 12,000 in the last year. Let's increase that a little bit more this year. It is a free festival and open to all. And hence, these numbers are very exciting for us. When you talk of numbers, we're talking about 150 events in these 3 days. You have various streams that you can enjoy. Obviously, there are literary sessions in 2 streams. There is Kavyadhara, 3 days dedicated poetry sessions. You have this year, and each year we've been able to and have really enjoyed doing this. The addition this year has been storytelling. So we have a stream dedicated to storytelling over the 3 days, which encompasses the entire age group, from little ones to all of us who can enjoy it. Talking about the little ones, we have had Nanha Nukkad for a couple of years, Youngistan Nukkad, the young people who really play it off at the food court in the corner. You will see a lot of energy from this group of Youngistan group. We have the storytelling, I said stage talk, workshops, films, interlude, cultural events. I think there's a very large set of activities, 150. I do hope that you can walk into many of these, enjoy as much as you can, and bring in people, call them. This is free and open, and remember, this is, and this was quoted by one of our guests who came a few years ago, this is really an event by the citizens, for the citizens. It is open completely. I cannot sit down before I spell out a few house rules. The norms that we'd like to follow with your help is, of course, to keep the phone on silent wherever we are. Do please enjoy the food court that's at the end of the football field, in the volleyball court, as the school calls it. I have also been in this school, so I know the technical terms of this space. So there is a food court. Please use that. It's open throughout the day. We have tried very hard, and I hope you notice it, and I hope you go along with us, to be environmentally more aware and more conscious. So we have reduced the use of flexes, and I'm standing right at a flex, of course, but we have reduced it, and we do wish that we reduce the use of plastic. Please carry your own bottle. There are several dispensers that you will have. You will not be deprived of it. After much ado between all the organizers and festival directors, we do have some plastic bottles on sale, but I have asked them to make it so inconvenient that you will pick up your own bottle and use it through the next 3 days. There are tabloids, beautifully produced by the Orient Black Swan Group. There is the schedule, and more over and above that, there is a QR code so that you can download that onto your phone as well and play out the events that are going to happen right here. I once again, on behalf of my fellow directors of the festival, the entire festival committee, the staff of HLF and Vidyaranya School, but particularly the young, enthusiastic, hardworking volunteers, welcome you warmly to the beginning of Hyderabad Literary Festival, and wish that we all have a lot of fun. I request presidential remark, and we will have Mr. Adhiraj Parthasarathi presiding over this inaugural session, and request Adhiraj Parthasarathi, please, Director Karvi Group, to say a few words.
Hi. I want to thank the festival directors this year, Mr. Ajay Gandhi, Ms. Amita Desai, Dr. Vijay Kumar, and Ms. Kinira Murthy for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. And all, can you guys hear me? Yeah. So I want to thank the festival directors this year for giving me the opportunity to say a few words, and also for the tremendous amount of effort they have put in to celebrate the 10th year of the Hyderabad Literary Festival. I find making opening remarks tedious and at least taxing for me, especially at 10 in the morning. They feel like an opening act that is bound to fail. Everybody's impatient for the real show to start, and no matter what you do, you always forget to thank someone important. So instead, I thought I would read to you a very brief excerpt from a celebrated book in the late 1980s, one that a lot of us in Hyderabad read, but one that is no longer read so much anymore, and I think might not be factually accurate also. This is Bruce Chatwin's song lines about his journeys through Australia and encountering Dreamtime. So Chatwin says, and I quote, "Aboriginal creation myths tell of the legendary totemic beings who have wandered over the continent in the dreamtime, singing out the name of everything that crossed their path: birds, animals, plants, rocks, water holes, and so singing the world into existence. Each totemic ancestor, while traveling through the country, was thought to have scattered a trail of words and musical notes along the line of his footprints. And these dreaming tracks lay over the land as ways of communication between the most far-flung tribes. A song was both map and direction finder. Yet, I felt the song lines were not necessarily an Australian phenomenon, but a universal one, that they were the means by which man marked out his territory and so organized his social life. All other successful systems are variants or perversions of this original model. I have a vision of the song lines stretching across the continents and ages, that wherever men have trodden, they have left a trail of song, of which we may now and then catch an echo, and that these trails must reach back in time and space." Now, Chatwin's song lines builds an elaborate imaginary narrative of walkabouts, where one follows dream tracks of song lines. I do not know how much fact is interwoven in his description, and I know this book has been contested subsequently. But I saw in it, in the story of Australian song lines, immediate parallels with South Indian stories, and with the way language, song, time, and space are anchored in geography. Now, every one of us here too is on a walkabout, building our own song lines and recovering lost ones. Over the last 10 years, HLF has facilitated the creation of such song lines. Signposts, memories, and trails that reach across geographies and back in time and space. If we strain to pay attention, we may catch a nostalgic echo or two of past song lines. I hope that in this 10th year, and in the dawn of a new decade, HLF will help us in Hyderabad create and scatter a fresh trail of memories, words, and musical notes, leave behind dreaming tracks, and sing new worlds into existence by performance and literature. Thank you so much for your time.
A warm good morning to each one of you, especially the festival directors, Ajay Gandhi, Vijay Kumar, Kinera, and Amita Desai, and our most respected chief guest, Adhir Gopal Krishnanji, and the Consul General of Australia, Suzanne, and all other guests who have come here. It's wonderful for me to come again for this. This is third time I've been attending this event. In fact, I was on long leave, almost like 4 months. I was in US, so I thought I will miss this year, but I could come back, and then last 2-3 days only we could get contacted, and I'm here before you. So one advantage I have now compared to earlier years, now I am also an author myself. On my book, Selfie of Success, it was Amazon bestseller last year. It sold more than 30,000 copies in 3 months. So I know what goes into mind of an author. So being a literary festival, so I have more right now to talk to you, not only as an administrator, but also as an author. So the inner self, when it wants to tell you something, then an author or poet is born. Otherwise, it's not that easy. There's something in you you want to tell. Maybe people may like it, people may not like it, but there is something in you which wanted to take an expression outside. So that expression, how well you put it, whether you would put it in a sugar candy model or you will put it as a just straightforward kashaya model, whatever model you want to put, whether you want commercial success, whether you want the glories, accolades, rewards, awards, or you would like to do, you just want to tell the plain truth, it's up to you. There are many, many great authors who are not celebrated. They tell very good things. They will never get to reach people. But there are many authors who become famous also. There are authors who can spin books like factories. Like factory products, they keep coming. So it's all the expression in them which is trying to take an expression, which is a mode of communication which is being reached out to you. Right? So, in fact, cinema also is a greater expression of literature itself. Because no cinema can be made without first being a story written. Right? Without a literary work being there, no cinema can be done. Impossible. So, somebody has to put the story on a paper or in your mind, whatever, then only cinema can be made. So, cinema is an additional embellishments added to the literary work. So, I treat cinema as an greater expression of literary work. So, that way HLF has been doing great work. And every year, as Amita Desai was saying, I was speaking in the language, whatever was the special language selected and the guest nation selected. So first time it was lucky that they had Spanish, Spain country was the guest nation, Spain, and the Kannada was the language. So Kannada I knew very well because I worked in Bangalore. I know Kannada almost like next best language I can speak after English and Hindi is Kannada. So there was no problem. And Spanish I was learning by that time just because I love to learn languages because Spanish being the second most spoken language. So I was trying my hand at Spanish. So that was not a problem at all. So it was easy first year. Second year then Chinese and Gujarati was there. So both I was not known. I was not introduced to both the languages, but I could put up some exercise and then finally I could read what I wanted to tell in that language. This year English, so that to that extent that problem is got, but again to my luck, though I had only 2 days, Malayalam is the language chosen. So I know Malayalam. How many Malayalis are here? Oh, quite a few. So now I'll tell few words in Malayalam. Few, not only few words, 2-3 sentences. I understand Malayalam a lot, but speaking will be a little difficult. So ഇവിടെ കുടിയിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ മലയാളി സഹോദര സഹോദരികൾക്കും എൻ്റെ നമസ്കാരം. Yes. പ്രകൃതി സൗന്ദര്യമായ ദൈവത്തിൻ്റെ സ്വന്തം നാടെന്നു പേരുന്ന അഴിയ പേരുന്ന സ്ഥലമാണ് കേരളം. So that kind of country which has lots of history, lots of beauty, lots of its own charm, naturally produced lots of literary giants. Wonderful people came from that country. In fact, though it's part of greater or great country, but Kerala itself can be called a country. They have everything which can qualify to make a complete nation. They have their own dance forms, their own dance, the literary traditions, they have their own, everything you can name it, whether it is structural things, whether it is temple architecture, you name anything, they have everything. So that kind of language, that kind of spirit definitely brought laurels, they brought lots of gems to literary world. whether it is Adhuri Gopal Krishnan or many others. There are many people who got various literary awards like Jnanpith Award. Many of them are from Kerala. So Kerala produces a number of literary works which are of very, very high caliber. Right? Same way, Australia. I've been to Australia a couple of times. It's a great country. You know, if you see the history of Australia, people were sent from England. Initially, they were forced to go. Nobody was interested to go. From that stage, today, now it's a favored destination. People want to go. Now they are stopping. They are not allowing everybody to come. So, see the difference. Earlier they were forced, go, whether they were prisoners or somebody else, those who were unwanted in England, they were forced to go. So from there, see the spirit of the people who have gone there. See the greatness of that soil or that land which made people to shine and become a role model. So today, Australia is one of the greatest civilized countries where lots of people, they make their living there. They have seen every local Australian citizen, they're very friendly, one of the friendliest people. There are some few cases here and there we hear, but that is not actually true because there are both hands only need to clap. Maybe some of our boys must be doing something wrong or they must have retarded. What happened, we don't know exactly, but generally every average Australian citizen is one of the friendliest people I've ever met. Very, very good people. And they want to work hard. They don't want anything to come free. So that kind of spirit, that enthusiastic entrepreneurship brought a country into a great world historical setting. So that kind of country, now we have some problems there like this bushfires and all, but they will definitely figure out because Australians will never fail. That much I can say. They come back again with every threat, they will always come back. So they will, now they will invent something, they will figure out something, how to control bushfires or how to rejuvenate the forest faster than what can be expected. So something will come out of this disaster. Because every disaster, every challenge, every adverse situation gives us an opportunity to look into ourselves, look into the situations. That's why somebody, when Amita was seeing here, was people was, okay, Amita, then somebody was saying, she said it's good to have good friends. But somebody was saying it is good to have good enemies also, right? So this adverse situation is an enemy. So in fact, my next books, which I am going to write will be Thank You, Mr. Enemy. So why I am telling this, why I am specially telling enemy is, the enemy is the one who brings the best out of you. When they challenge you, the best in you will come out. See, necessity is mother of invention, we call. What is necessity? Necessity is not a favorable condition. Necessity is always an adverse condition. When you have everything, there is no necessity. There is a lack of it, then it is called necessity. So that's how necessity is mother of invention. Like that, now this necessity will do great things. So I really very happy to be with all of you. Now we have to listen to our great respected chief guest and Suzanne from Australia also. So I close here. Enjoy this festival. This festival I would like to wish, and each one of us should look for a greater day where this festival is celebrated as one of the biggest festivals, not only in India, in the entire world. People should come traveling to this place to witness this festival. So we'll look for such wonderful, great days ahead. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Congratulations to the organisers and the festival director that you are now having your 10th anniversary of the Lit Fest here. That's a great achievement. And Australia, of course, is thrilled to be the guest nation here on this occasion. And we have 14 Australian writers here for the festival. And I'll introduce them in a moment. I'll do my best to speak English, but perhaps I should start with a bit of Australian. So, g'day everyone, how's it going? I think most Indians pick up Australian slang from watching the cricket, so So because I've been a bookworm all my life, I thought I'd start with books that I've loved about India and written by Indians, because my first diplomatic assignment was in New Delhi more than 20 years ago. And I remember when I was getting on the plane from Melbourne to Delhi, I was reading Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things, which had just won the Booker Prize. And I had the thrill of actually meeting Arundhati in Delhi when she came to the High Commission before she got on the plane to Adelaide for the Adelaide Writers' Week. So I think that was one of the books that I read at the time. But I'll pick three other books that I read during my nearly 4 years in Delhi, from 97 until 2000, that really helped me understand India, but were also just an absolute pleasure. One was A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. And I think, like a lot of other fans of the writer, I've been waiting and waiting for the sequel, which I think every time I look at his webpage it says, this year it's coming out, but I really hope that this year will be the year when A Suitable Girl comes out. William Dalrymple's City of Jinns, which for me was like a guidebook to Delhi. And of course, I think most of you would be aware of his huge, enormous tome on the East India Company, The Anarchy, which I have ready to read but haven't quite yet started. But to me, he is one of the greats who writes about India. And then my third one for that time would be Ramachandra Guha's book, the biography of Veria Elwyn, called Savaging the Civilized, which is a really very interesting portrait of an Englishman who became an Indian and became an expert on anthropology in India. And he was a very close follower of Gandhi. And just a word on Ramachandra Guha, because I'm a huge fan of him. I've read nearly all of his books, barring his latest one on Gandhi, which is a big challenge for anyone. I think it's about 1,000 pages. But I think that given the tumultuous times in India at the moment, I really do see Ram Guha as being a moral compass for the country, and I have enormous respect for him. When I came to Chennai just 2 years ago, one of the first things that I did, because I really didn't know too many people in the city, was to set up a book club of all women, all Indians, and the person who helped me put it together is a professor of English literature, now retired, Eugenie Pinto. So we have a great group, and we started off by reading a lot of Tamil writers, some of them in translation. So I'll just mention three of those books that have really helped me understand Tamil Nadu and the South. I'd say Paramal Murugan, his wonderful book called Seasons of the Palm, which has also been beautifully translated. Another book, which I think is one of the most interesting political books I've read, is by P. Sivakami, In the Grip of Change. So this is a Dalit feminist writer. And then we have a great writer in Chennai who's incredibly prolific, called Tim Murari. And his book that's just out at the moment, it's actually a reprint under a new title called Gunboat Jack, which is a great portrait of an American boxer who was living in Bangalore during the 1970s. But I'll add another one, since I understand that Malayali is your language for this Lit Fest, and that's Goat Days by Benjamin and Jasmine Days, because they're two brilliant books about the guest worker experience in the Gulf, and I loved both of those books. I'd like to say thank you to the festival director, and also appreciate my thanks for all of the messages of support, condolence that we've had for the devastating bushfires in Australia. It really has been a national catastrophe. It's a global catastrophe, what's happened in Australia, and I think Sir is right in saying that it really does, I think it throws out a challenge not just for Australians, but for scientists around the world, for us to tackle our climate change problems together. So Australia's been facing bushfires periodically, but these have been the worst ones ever. Last year in Chennai, we had a water crisis. The whole city just about ran out of water. So, I think everywhere now we're facing these crises, and the best and most clever scientists have to put their heads together to help us solve some of these problems. Just on the bushfires again, a lot of people say, is it safe to travel out to Australia? Can we still go? It is safe, and we have a lot of information that you can look at just to check according to where you're travelling. but we really do want people to keep coming out to Australia because the economy, frankly, needs it. And I'd encourage all of the book lovers here today to consider going out to Australia at the end of February for the Adelaide Writers' Week, which is a great occasion, and also to the Sydney Writers' Festival, which is in April, May. Both great reasons to go out to Australia. So could I now just introduce the 14 writers that we have briefly. They're sitting in a posse here up towards the back there in this row. Pardon? Sorry? Oh, is that okay? Could all the Australian writers please stand? Not all of them are here just yet. Some are arriving over the weekend. Oh, here you are. Thank you. So we have First Nation writers and educators Anita Heiss, Bronwyn Fredericks, who today will be presenting a panel on Indigenous Australian perspectives. Romance novelist Lisa Headkey and fantasy writer Kim Wilkins. We have journalist John Zabritsky arriving on Sunday. So I think some of you might be familiar here in Hyderabad with his book on the last Nizam of Hyderabad. And he put out a great book last year called Jaduwallahs, Jugglers and Jinns. We have Indian-Australian author Rowana Gonsalves. We have journalist and author Caroline Overington. We have cricket writer Gideon Haig. So these are the writers that the consulate is sponsoring. And then we have a group of other writers who've come on their own steam. Hats off to you. So First Nations poet Alfred Taylor, Kieran Dolan, Catherine Hummel, Lynette Lounsbury, Stephen Alomes, and Rashida Murphy. So it's wonderful to have such a good group of Australian writers, and I hope most of you can get to their sessions. Thank you.
Dear Ms. Amita Desai, dear Sri Adhiraj Parthasarathi, dear Sri Bura Venkadesham, dear Miss Susan Grace, dear Miss Kinnara Murthy, and what a great audience. A great audience of writers and readers and good minds. I'm particularly pleased and honored to be here in your midst. And while I was very happy to know that this year the focus is on language-wise on Malayalam. And as you know, Kerala in the past was in three parts. Travancore, the major state amongst the three areas, then a small state of Kochi, and the whole big district of Malabar directly under the British rule. So Travancore was a very progressive state. And it used to be our practice to have divans invited from Andhra Pradesh. We had several Raos coming as divans in Travancore, and they had contributed greatly to the welfare of the state, to the culture, to the life, living. And one of those great divans was Sir T. Madhav Rao. It was during his period that Kerala's landmark building, that is the Secretariat in Trivandrum, was built. And in honor to him, we have erected a statue just in front of the Secretariat building on the main road. So we are very, very, very greatly associated with Andhra Pradesh. And also in Travancore, in the very old days, we used to have at irregular intervals, we used to have famines. And we had entirely depended on Andhra Pradesh for rice to be brought in. So today, particularly in the Travancore region, we have stopped cultivating rice because it is no more practical to cultivate rice because of the rising costs of manure and also particularly labor. Rice is a very labor-intensive cultivation. So again today, if the goods train doesn't arrive from this part of India, this is Andhra Pradesh, with rice, we will be starving. So we are very much dependent on Andhra Pradesh. Thank you, Andhra Pradesh. So and at this inaugural session, I wanted to be brief, and at the same time, I thought I must mention something about human civilization that we have studied in classrooms and elsewhere in the books. It is always divided into eras. There are different eras in the human progress of human civilization. The first, they say it is the Stone Age, then there is the Iron Age, and all that progressing. And finally, comes to today, it is the waste age, And we forget that really the culture should be counted from elsewhere. Because the humans in the very old days, that day, then they wanted to describe an experience of hunting, particularly hunting, because they had to live hunting animals and eating the meat. So some of the victories that they achieved in hunting had to be transferred to others. It has to be told to others. So there was no real language evolved. So what they did was they did acting most of the time with sounds, not particularly any meaning, any particular giving any meaning to any particular word or expression. So they started acting. It started with acting in the absence of language, and the gestures that they used stood for the language. And slowly, and very slowly, they developed their language. A particular voice expressed in a particular way meant something, and some other word pronounced differently meant something else, and always with the right expression. So slowly a language developed, and that was the next stage of civilization. And then slowly they found a script, how to write. And that was the greatest development until that time. And then slowly a language developed and they started writing. That was the first stage of civilization. Actually, and then came, again, ages later. And all through these ages, man used to dream of reproducing movement and reproducing sound. This they tried various things, nothing worked, but then there were attempts all through. And finally, one day, they found the possibility of having moving images. So this became the age of the image. So this was actually the day man invented moving image and the sound synchronized with that. That marked the reinvention of humanity. The man reinvented himself because he could see people who are no more around, they are all recorded. They are reproduced in sound and in images. This was the greatest invention man has achieved. So, while talking about literature, we should know that human progress should be seen not in terms of Iron Age and those ages, but in terms of literacy, language, literature, and the way we became more and more civilized and modern. So, in the interest of brevity, I just wrote down. I was told that this session, it has to be very short, and nobody should talk at length. So I wrote down what I had to say. As I mull over the subject of this very special festival in Hyderabad, which is both a celebration of literature and cinema, I am prompted to become aware that I am into both as a professional filmmaker and as an occasional writer. My way down the lane has been from literature to cinema. It was rather more circumvent, from literature to theatre and thereon to cinema. The interrelation between film and literature is a much debated topic. Also, the literature part of the subject sanctifies its relevance in a literature festival. For that matter, any traditional, conventional academic debate. We all know good literature is in great demand everywhere, whereas in the case of cinema, it is different. With adjectives like excellent, intelligent, or artistic, it would per se scare away the audiences, at least in our country. All the same, those of us who are die-hard lovers of both good literature and good cinema carry on the discussion that helps understand the nuances of these two areas of human ingenuity and creativity. While literature has been in evolution for hundreds of years, cinema is just about a century old. Its long life and tradition has given literature an edge over the comparatively nascent art of cinema. Cinema is also greatly dependent on literature for its study and understanding. All the terms and tools of literature are used in evaluating or even dismissing a film. If the film is very beautifully shot, it would be described as poetic. Thus, literature is an unavoidable vehicle for other art forms to ride over. No wonder there is no debate or discussion without literature taking the maternal role. Literature is solely addressed to the literate, a reader who is awake, alert, critical, and attuned to the many hues and colors of the written word. Literature's appeal is to the cultivated individual who can take surprises and complexities and can savor idioms hitherto unfamiliar. Cinema, on the contrary, is essentially addressed to a mass of people, the audience that is assembled inside a darkened hall to watch and share the thrills and excitements of an experience as a temporary community of dissimilar tastes and attitudes. Consequently, cinema is always engaged in an endeavor to please and placate an audience that even as being literate, think and behave like uninitiated as a mass. Here, one is addressing a group whose responses are guided and governed by the faculties of the lowest common denominator. While it is widely acknowledged that cinema, from its very inception, has been deeply influenced by literature, it is hardly recognized that cinema in turn has influenced literature to a great extent. It even gave rise to a genre of writing called the anti-novel. One of the prominent proponents of the anti-novel was the French author and filmmaker Alain Robbe-Grillet. His novels did not ever use any adjectives. He just described scenes graphically as if he were describing a film shot without ever using any of the traditional means of dramaturgy for involvement of the audience in the progression of the plot or the characters. Alain Robbe-Grillet's career as a creator of fiction was not restricted to the writing of novels. For him, creating fiction in the form of films was of equal importance. His film career began when Alain Resnais chose to collaborate with him on his 1961 film Last Year in Marienbad. In the credits, it was presented as a film equally co-authored by Alain Robbe-Grillet and Alain Resnais. His first independent film was L'Immortel, The Immortal. To pare it down to essentials, literature is written to be read, whereas cinema is created to be seen and heard by an audience. Literature lets and leads each individual reader to create his own image of objects, people, and nature. We call it word image. Cinema creates plastic images for the multitude of audiences. The images of cinema or its sounds do not change with the audience, whereas the experience of literature is something very subjective and unique to each reader. Tarkovsky, the great Soviet filmmaker, has said that every art form aspires to the state of literature. He has surmised that a filmmaker's mission should be to take cinema to the level of literature by investing it with the power to overcome its plasticity. Let us look at it this way. Literature leaves no residues. It takes the reader direct to the core of an experience, and having performed its role of holy function, it vanishes into thin air, leaving nothing behind. In cinema, the medium is composed of actors, visuals, sounds, colors, and compositions, and each of it has its own definite form, function, and a life beyond creating a composite fictional impact on the audience. The actor is a concrete reality, so are the visuals and sounds. The viewer here, wherever and whenever, irrespective of his or her class and consciousness, is interacting with a concrete objective medium without any change or variation. According to Tarkovsky, cinema should overcome this plasticity to make claims to the status of literature. Tarkovsky has achieved it in his works like Andrei Rublev and Stoker. No, not a minor achievement. Thank you very much.